So I don't know if you've heard, but you probably have been living under a rock if you haven't heard some sort of headline or media that is telling everyone right now that if you want to look at a house, you need to sign a buyer's agency agreement with your realtor. And what that does is it states how much your real estate agent is going to get paid for what they do for you. Now, typically, in the past, sellers will offer a buyer's agent commission. And what is changed is that buyer's agent commission is no longer legal for it to be on our MLS system. So we have to go and talk to whoever's listing it and ask if they indeed are offering that. If they're not, then we need to negotiate getting those fees paid, or you can have them rolled into your closing costs. There's a lot of different things we can do, but ultimately, you are responsible for paying your agent. Say you're a buyer and you have to come up with your down payment, and you also have to pay your closing costs, and now you have to pay a real estate agent. Given the state of our economy right now and everybody's pocketbooks are stretched to the max with interest rates, that doesn't leave a lot of money left over for people to be able to pay a buyer's agent. That's why it's such a big ordeal in the media. If we take a step back and look at it, how we've handled it in the last few years, we've had a lot of for sale by owners. So I have a buyer and I go to that for sale by owner and I'm like, hey, I have a buyer that would like to purchase your house. Will you pay me a commission? And they'll agree to it if we can come to terms on the purchase price or whatever. That's basically all we're gonna have to do now as agents. We just have to go to the other party and be like, hey, here's their offer. They're also asking you to pay me as well. And we can put that in the offer. If they're stubborn and for some reason they don't want to, then we can do other things to negotiate it so it's not directly cash to close for the buyer. Everything is negotiated. I think before, where this gray area happened and where that lawsuit falls in is it was just assumed. And so now everything is going to be explained very, very well. And there's no buyer that's gonna be like, well, I don't know how my agent got paid. No, you're gonna know. This is changing because there was some lawsuits, and each state operates differently in their agreements and their contracts for real estate. I have been told that Wyoming was one of the best states as far as our contracts and in the way that we present to our buyers how we get paid. So we already had a form and an agreement. We just didn't get it signed prior to showing our buyers. So now we're going to be more formal about that. That's really the only change I see happening with how I handle my buyers specifically. But there's been some agents that have been doing this for years and just never would get those signed. I've been thinking of a really good way to express it as an analogy so people can really understand how simple it is. And the best way I can think of it is like medical insurance. You go to the doctor and they say, you are responsible for X amount of dollars that this visit costs. We'll bill it to your insurance and see what they cover, but you ultimately are responsible. So if you have great insurance, awesome, they cover X amount and you're responsible for the rest. Sometimes if you have two insurances, they can both chip in. That could both be the buyer and the seller that are paying for part of my fees, or hey, maybe the buyer's just gonna have to pay for it all because the insurance didn't cover it. As a buyer, you're gonna do your research on your agents and you're gonna make sure that you have a good one, and you're gonna know exactly what you are paying them and how it's going to be dispersed. And it will be very clear to all parties in the transaction. We have an addendum that we have with our contracts that state exactly how we're getting paid and who is paying it. So there will never be confusion moving forward about how buyer's agents are getting paid.